are about to enter a very strange world. A world of alleged spooks and spies, of conspiracies and covert operations, of illicit transmissions across the globe, to secret agents on undercover operations. What I'm about to show you is at the very least curious, and possibly very scary indeed.
Zero Dark Radio.
We are on the phone again with John Lear, as he is a very important voice in the topics we are going to be discussing tonight. I know last episode I told everybody that we weren't going to talk about Area 51 anymore, but there is some very, important questions that I forgot to ask that are very worth asking about, which is, what was Bob to brief on? What were some of the coolest things he saw at Area 51? What was it like being inside an extraterrestrial craft? And then we're going to get a little bit into the 9/11 cover-up, which is something I have never discussed publicly before. It's something I've been researching for 2 years before I even thought about opening my mouth about it. But let me tell you, people, if you're skeptical about this, it stinks. There's some sort of cover-up going on, and John will be more than happy to explain why, because he was a pilot. He flew these planes. He can explain everything to you. So thank you, John, for joining us again.
My pleasure.
So let's jump right into the Lazar Area 51 briefings. What were some of the most interesting things you remember him telling you that he was briefed on? Like, I remember you speaking about how he had a bunch of files on his desk, almost that he could catch up on all these things that he didn't even know what was going on, correct?
Yeah, well, at his desk at S4, yes, there was about 100 files, and I think he said they were colored blue, and they weren't very long. Some had a few pages, some had 20 or 30 pages, some had more. And what was interesting is that there was like a staple, and every time he looked at this file, he imagined a staple that would not let him go any further into the file. And so the next time he looked at it, as his security briefing was increased, those files would move further back on the pages so that he could read more about what was going on.
What were some of the things that, he probably told you all 100 things that he read, but what were some of the top craziest things that you remember him speaking about or being briefed on?
Well, so many things, actually, and the main thing is when they brought him into S4, he was taken into a lab, and he met Barry, and I don't know what Barry's last name is. George Damp knows it. We figured it out. But Barry showed him some things about what they were doing with in the lab, and one of the things was Barry had a operating antimatter reactor, and what he was able to do was Barry would throw a golf ball at it, and it would start bouncing all around the room, far more than if it just had its own normal gravity field, and it would go bouncing around. He thought that was pretty interesting. He said there was nothing that normal about the room. I will tell you this, and I don't think anybody's mentioned it before. We or he tried to sneak a camera in, and at those times, one of the drugstores, I forget whether it was Save-On or one of the drugstores, had a real teeny little camera, and he found that, took some measurements, and he found that he was able to put that camera into the leg of the stool, and I'm sure they never found out of it, because I'm sure his punishments would have been much worse.
Oh yeah, treason.
They caught him right in the middle of it because he told us that he took it up the day before. And in those days, they didn't take any measurements. No measurements with to how much you weigh or how much the stuff weighs. But now, since he left, it's pretty dramatic because everybody on the test site now gets a
X-ray, probably. I mean, they go through the ringer, I bet.
X-ray and weighing. You're not allowed to differ more than I think it's a half a pound from the time you went in till the time you got out. It's very strict, even more strict when you first go in. The harassment, or I call it harassment, continues because you have to continually take these measurements and all kinds of stuff.
Just to get in. Does this happen at Site 4, Area 51, or do you think it happens in the Janet terminal? Do you think that they don't even allow you to get on the airplane? I mean, do you know anything about that?
Yeah, they don't do anything in the airplane. They do it when they get into the Janet terminal.
Okay.
Now, when he drove up to the terminal, he was in, as you remember, he was in a bus with blacked out windows, and he could just see forward and through the driver's window.
With a guard staring at him, correct?
Yeah. And so they drive up to the hangar doors, and the hangar doors are open. And I can't remember whether it was the very first time or the second time when he drove up there, but he was close enough that he could put his hand on top of on the saucer. And as soon as he did that, somebody said, "Don't touch that." And he said it felt like a cool metal saucer. It's fortunate that it wasn't activated because what happened in Afghanistan here about a year ago, or maybe even less than that, is there's a mode that you can put this saucer in, that when you leave for any reason and you have to leave that saucer there, they put it in a mode so that if you touch that saucer, you're immediately put inside the saucer and you're incapacitated.
Wow.
And so I don't know whether you know that you're in there or what, but
Yes.
I don't think I'll be touching any saucers very soon.
Oh, hell
because,
no.
it could go on for hundreds of years depending on how they have this thing set, whether it's set for a couple of days, couple of years, whatever. But I imagine it can be very scary. And this saucer was found in Afghanistan, like I said, about a year ago, and they were exploring the tunnels. Now, the tunnels are outlined in the book, trying to think of the name of the author, the guy, Mitchner, and he did a book on the history of Afghanistan, and it's a really interesting book. But one of the things he talked about was that when Mitchner, he himself was assigned to Kabul in Afghanistan, he was assigned to research around it, and he went exploring, and he found these huge tunnels that went from one end of Afghanistan to the other, and they don't know what they could have been, what these saucers could have been, because they weren't in use anymore. It looked like they could have been water carriers, but nobody knew. And this was the first team that went in there to find out. One of the guys in there just reached over and touched the saucer, and he immediately disappeared.
Oh my
And
God.
so he's the one that got caught in this disappearing thing, and I don't know whether he's alive or conscious or what, but I imagine that it's pretty scary.
So this is a defense mechanism by the extraterrestrials or by the U.S. government?
By the extraterrestrials.
Okay, and these were American scientists that were in the caves and stuff?
Scientists, they were just regular guys, soldiers.
Oh, American
We're on a
soldiers?
search. We were just in the process of searching Afghanistan. We were trying to find where these tunnels went. And when we got way deep into one of these tunnels, they found this saucer, and some guy decided to find out what it was like, and he touched it and disappeared. And this time, I don't think anybody knows where he went.
Wow.
I don't have any contacts anymore in Afghanistan, so I don't know, but it is a pretty scary deal.
It's not good to touch a saucer, but when the Roswell crash happened, was there some sort of biological agent that was released that is poisonous to humans?
It did not do that in the crash in Roswell.
Okay.
And however, on future sites and crash sites, they took every precaution possible with suits and like spacesuits and stuff like that.
Yes. You've also described to me the Janet Air Terminal over there at Las Vegas as very space age. What did you mean by that?
Oh, it's just it looks brand new, and it looks real nice. And as you drive up to it, it has these huge doors that are blackened out, and they can just turn a button, and it will gradually bring up the disappearance ability of the glass. In other words, it'll just make whoever's inside the office disappear.
Yeah, the windows will fog up, right?
Right, the windows will fog up.
So what did Bob describe, walking inside the flying saucer at S4? What did he describe that like?
Well, he had to bend down, of course, because it was only built for people who were 3 feet tall. And at first, he thought, well, this is just when he saw the American flag on the saucer, at first he thought, well, this is just a
American-built craft.
right. He thought, well, then why are the chairs so small? Why are they only 3 feet tall? And that's when it began to dawn on him that this was real, that these were extraterrestrials. He felt that this was a real thing. So they took him into his office, and he was directed to go to the nursing room, and they put a kind of a rectangular square about 3 inches by 6 inches on his arm, and when they pushed down, it made an imprint of all these little squares. And then when they took it off, they took these different inoculations and put a different one in each square, and this was to see whether or not he was allergic to any of the squares.
He doesn't even know what those were, though, correct?
No, didn't even know what they were.
He assumes, obviously, there was some sort of extraterrestrial agent that if he would react to it.
Yeah, could have been.
But could have been a lot of things.
They didn't tell him.
Thank you for joining us again today, John, and we'll be talking to you again real soon. Thank you for joining us today.
Okay, my pleasure. Call anytime.
All right, John, have a great day.